A black and white photograph long forgotten has resurfaced, showing Nazi soldiers standing over a captured woman. At first, it seemed like just another war image, but when experts began to zoom in, they noticed something chilling: a tiny symbol behind her ear. What they discovered turned even the most experienced historians pale. This single photograph may hold secrets about hidden resistance networks and a woman who defied the Nazis against all odds. The photo that shouldn't have existed. In early 2025, archivist Julia Hoffman sat alone in a quiet room filled with old metal shelves and dusty brown boxes. She had been working for weeks to digitize newly opened German archives from the war era. Most envelopes were faded and unmarked. Many contained nothing more than blurred letters or cracked documents. But one envelope felt heavier. When she opened it, she found a single black and white photograph that made her freeze in her chair. In the picture, 5 men in either SS or Gestapo uniform were standing stiffly. Behind them lay a row of women who were forced to lie face down on a stone floor. Their hands could not be seen. Their faces were pressed against the ground. Nothing about the photograph was labeled. The women had no names. The location had no description. The image carried a feeling of cold cruelty that Julia had never felt from any archive before. She immediately sent the photo to Dr. Marcus Weber, a forensic photo analyst known for studying hidden details in historical pictures. When Weber enlarged the image on his screen, something unusual caught his attention. Behind the ear of one woman, barely visible, was a tiny symbol. At first, it looked like a smudge, but when he zoomed in further, it's beep, became clear. Weber had seen strange marks in war photos before, but this one was different enough to unsettle him. He called historian Dr. Elise Baumann, an expert in resistance networks that operated secretly under the Third Reich. The moment Baumann saw the symbol, she leaned forward in disbelief. She recognized it as something very similar to secret signs used by underground resistance groups. These groups survived by using silent methods of communication. Some hid messages in microfilm. Others used coded letters or sewn patches that only insiders would notice. A tiny mark behind the ear was a method used only by highly trained cells that needed to identify each other without speaking. The discovery changed the meaning of the entire photograph. If one of the women belonged to a resistance group, the scene was not a simple arrest. It might have been a moment recorded just before an interrogation or execution. The pose of the women, the rigid stance of the officers, and the cold expression on their faces suggested something staged. Weber believed the image might have been taken inside a Gestapo detention building or an SD intelligence center. It could have been a punitive showcase, created as a warning to others who dared resist. Nazi units sometimes took such photos to use as internal propaganda. They wanted to prove control and to break the spirit of anyone who dreamed of fighting back. The real mystery was only beginning. If the woman truly was a resistance leader, how did she survive long enough for her mark to be so clearly visible? And for what purpose was this haunting photograph kept alive? The legend of the Midnight Circle. Dr. Baumann sat with the photograph glowing on the screen, the faint symbol behind the woman's ear pulling her deeper into memory. She finally spoke of something she had never discussed in any public lecture. It was a legend whispered by old survivors, mentioned only in half-finished stories and fading letters. They called it the Midnight Circle. It was said to be a secret resistance network that operated in eastern Germany and in the region of Silesia during the darkest years of the war. Official files showed almost nothing about it. Many historians believed it was only a rumor, yet oral histories, a few scattered testimonies, and the strange symbol in the photograph suggested that the stories might contain truth. Baumann explained that women had played powerful but often unrecognized roles in resistance across Europe. They carried messages across borders, forged documents, gathered intelligence, and served as silent couriers who moved through cities without attracting attention. Research published by ANU Press showed how women acted as informants and saboteurs, risking their lives at every turn. Their work was not honored in official records because they operated in secret, and many of their actions were wiped from history when the war ended. She gave examples from Poland, where the Jewish underground depended heavily on women leaders. These women crossed ghettos with hidden messages, organized rescues, moved chill doctrine to safety, and kept communication alive when men were being hunted across the region. The Jewish Women's Archive preserved many such testimonies. Across Nazi-controlled Europe, women continued to resist. Some were Christians like Erika von Tresco, who supported the July 20th plot against Hitler. Others were Jewish women who printed illegal leaflets in hidden basements or ran secret routes to smuggle people to safety. Deutsche Welle documented several of these forgotten heroes. Baumann then leaned closer to the photograph. The symbol behind the ear was not a simple mark. She explained that some resistance groups used what they called calling cards. These were subtle signs placed on clothing, paper, or even skin. They were messages for their own people, signals that said, "We are still here, we are together, and we are not broken." The design in the photo matched this tradition. It felt like a deliberate declaration of strength, even in a moment of danger. This made Baumann wonder if the woman in the photo could be Friederike Haas, a figure mentioned in whispers about the Midnight Circle. According to a few rare testimonies, Friederike was a leader who coordinated cross-border escapes and arranged forged identities. She guided resistance members through dangerous territories, often moving at night through forests and abandoned roads. Some believed she had access to information that only someone with strong connections could obtain. Others thought she had an ability to appear and disappear in ways that suggested she was protected by someone inside the enemy's system. If Friederike was truly the woman in the photograph and a central figure in this secret network, then one question grew heavier than all others. Did she survive because she had allies hidden in high places, or was she playing a far more dangerous game and quietly betraying even the people who trusted her most? The investigation begins. The research team gathered around the photograph like detectives studying a single fragile clue. They decided that the first step was to bring in digital forensic experts who could uncover details hidden by age, dust, and time. Using advanced tools that included high-resolution scanners, modern artificial intelligence for face recognition, and careful pattern analysis, they began to clean the image pixel by pixel. Slowly, the blurred shadows sharpened. The faces became clearer. The faint textures of uniforms, walls, and windows started to emerge with unsettling clarity. Once the image reached its highest possible quality, the team compared the background with old photographs of Gestapo and SD facilities. The shape of the windows, the size of the stone blocks, and even the curve of the doorway helped narrow it down. After several days of comparison, they concluded that the photograph was almost certainly taken at a government building in Görlitz. This city sat directly on the German-Polish border and held major strategic value during the war. Many secret operations passed through it. Both Gestapo and SD units worked there, often coordinating arrests of resistance networks that tried to move people across the border. The enhanced image also revealed more about the men in uniform. One officer clearly carried the emblem of the SD, which was the intelligence branch of the Nazi regime. The others wore Gestapo or SS uniforms. This combination suggested that the arrest was planned with high importance. SD officers usually appeared only when a case involved political danger or a suspected leader of a resistance cell. The presence of multiple agencies pointed to a target who held valuable information or who posed a real threat to the regime. Attention then returned to the woman lying on the ground. The high-resolution version revealed bruises near her jaw, swelling near her left eye, and small cuts along her forehead. These injuries were not visible in the original print. They showed that she had already endured interrogation, yet her face held an expression that surprised everyone in the room. There was no panic. Instead, her eyes showed calm strength and a quiet defiance that made the investigators pause. Dr. Weber and Dr. Baumann examined wartime interrogation records from the Görlitz region. Many files were incomplete or deliberately destroyed as the war neared its end. Still, they found a registry listing several female sabotage agents captured in 1943. Their names were recorded, but no information was given about what happened to them afterwards. It was as if they disappeared into the walls of the facility with no trace. The team also explored how female operatives worked during the war. Many disguised their activities by taking ordinary roles such as cleaners, nurses, or administrative workers. These jobs allowed them to move more freely inside occupied buildings where men would have been questioned or stopped. Women often carried hidden messages, forged documents, or small tools for sabotage under the cover of harmless duties. Yet none of this explained the strongest mystery of all. If the woman in the photograph truly survived interrogation and still looked so composed, why was she never executed publicly like so many others? And where did she vanish after this haunting moment recorded on camera? The call that changes everything. The The research team had been working quietly, sharing only small updates with a few historians. But everything changed when a local historical society aired a short segment about the mysterious photograph. The story spread quickly. Viewers were shocked by the image of the calm-faced woman lying on the floor while surrounded by cruel officers. Some wondered if she had ever been identified. Others shared theories online. For the team, the segment was meant only to encourage leads, but what happened next went far beyond anything they expected. 2 days after the broadcast, the society received a call from a 91-year-old woman named Anna Richter. Her voice trembled with age, but her certainty was strong. She said she recognized the woman in the photo. She claimed that when she was a teenager living in Silesia during the war, she had known a woman named Friederike Haas. According to Anna, Friederike had been a schoolteacher who carried a quiet and mysterious strength. Anna always sensed that the teacher had a secret life. As Anna began to share her memories, the room fell silent. She explained that Friederike had used her teaching position as a shield. She forged identity papers for families trying to flee the region. She hid fugitives in abandoned storerooms and even under her classroom floorboards. She smuggled people across the border during evenings when most patrols were light. Anna said that many in the community whispered warnings that Friederike was risking everything, but Friederike only replied that someone must do what is right. Anna then told a story that none of the researchers had ever encountered in any record. She spoke of a daring rescue in which Friederike disguised herself as a cleaner in a Gestapo-controlled facility. She had learned the routines of the guards and studied the shifts of the staff. During her visits, she pushed lawn doctory carts that hid 6 Jewish child doctrine. She led them from room to room and then out through a service entrance where a safe contact waited with a wagon. This story matched known resistance methods. Many women used roles such as cleaners and nurses to hide their activities, as mentioned in various historical accounts, including those referenced by Listverse. Anna's version carried the ring of truth because it fit the patterns of the documented networks. Anna also described the strange symbol behind Friederike's ear. She said Friederike insisted on keeping the mark visible. It was not for vanity. It was a message to other resistance members who might cross her path. It was a silent signal that said you are not alone. It showed courage and identity in a world filled with fear. As Anna spoke, tears rose in her eyes. She admitted that she never knew what happened to Friederike after the war. Many people vanished in those chaotic final years, but she believed that Friederike saved more lives than anyone ever realized. Anna's testimony breathed life into a figure long considered a myth. If her story was true, then how many people truly owed their survival to Friederike? And who else from her secret circle might still be alive today? New survivors, new secrets. After Anna Richter's call, the research team knew they were onto something far bigger than a single photograph. They decided to launch a wide search combining archival research and oral histories. They reached out to survivor networks, local historians, and even church groups that had preserved war-era records. Over weeks, they slowly pieced together a network of people who might remember the woman with the small mark behind her ear. Their efforts began to pay off. 3 more elderly survivors came forward, each claiming to have known a woman who matched Friederike Haas in appearance, skills, and bravery. The first survivor remembered Friederike as a teacher in a multilingual school before the war. She recalled Friederike moving easily between students speaking German, Polish, and Czech, teaching lessons while quietly observing the wider world around her. The second survivor remembered how Friederike had forged identity documents for people of different nationalities, creating false papers that allowed entire families to cross borders undetected. The third survivor spoke of secret meetings in dense forests near Silesia, where women and men of the resistance would exchange messages, train in escape tactics, and plan their next moves. These stories aligned with known historical methods. Many resistance operatives in Silesia had to be multilingual because the region's population spoke multiple languages and the borders were closely monitored. Meanwhile, Dr. Klaus Richter, a historian based in Berlin, uncovered a Gestapo record from 1944 that added more weight to the oral histories. The file listed 6 women arrested for sabotage and aiding enemies of the Reich. Though their names were partially redacted and descriptions vague, the number matched the 5 women in the photograph, plus 1 unknown. Shockingly, the file ended abruptly. There was no mention of a trial, execution, or final fate for any of these women. One passage stood out to Baumann and Weber. It mentioned that one woman had special connections and was suspected of forging official papers for a family of 4. The Gestapo described the network as dangerous and labeled them as traitors, but noted that the full extent of their operations and their accomplices was yet unknown. The language hinted at fear and confusion among Nazi officers. Whoever this woman was, she had unsettled them. The more the researchers delved, the more a chilling thought took shape. If the Gestapo had knowledge of Frederica and her network, someone must have betrayed them. Perhaps a member of the Midnight Circle had been secretly working for the Nazis, or a trusted ally had been turned under threat. The very network that had saved so many lives might have contained a hidden traitor. The question that haunted the team now was personal and dangerous. If betrayal had allowed the Gestapo to target Frederica and her allies, who could it have been? The Vanishing. The researchers stared at the 1944 SS and Gestapo file, growing more unsettled with every page. The document recorded the initial arrest of 6 women, but then it stopped. There was no mention of trial, execution, or transfer to another prison. The file ended as abruptly as if someone had cut it in half. Baumann reminded the team that missing records were common in the final months of the war. Chaos reigned across Germany. Documents were lost, destroyed, or deliberately erased to hide evidence of crimes. Still, the absence of information about the women was striking, almost deliberate. To fill the gaps, the team turned to Allied and Soviet bombing records. Görlitz, they discovered, had been hit repeatedly in late 1944 and early 1945. The city had been a strategic target, and many buildings, including government offices, had suffered heavy damage. The researchers considered that the Gestapo facility, where Frederica and the others were held, might have been partially destroyed. Prisoners could have been evacuated hastily, moved somewhere else, or even lost in the confusion. Every possibility seemed both terrifying and plausible. Next, the team studied refugee and dissident lists from the immediate post-war period. These records tracked displaced families, missing persons, and people who had fled or vanished. There was no explicit mention of Frederica Haas, yet several documents referred to a teacher with a scar behind her ear, someone who helped people move safely across borders. The description was too specific to ignore. It suggested that Frederica had not only survived, but had somehow avoided being officially recorded, blending into the vast number of displaced people. Another puzzle emerged when they examined local denazification records. After the war, those involved in the resistance were supposed to be registered for protection and recognition. Frederica's name appeared nowhere. This silence was strange. It hinted that she might have gone underground immediately after the war. Perhaps she assumed a new identity, or maybe someone deliberately erased her existence, fearing the secrets she carried and the knowledge of dangerous networks she had built. The team debated the possibilities. Could Frederica have escaped during one of the bombing raids? Might she have been clandestinely transferred to Allied or Soviet hands for interrogation or protection? Or could there have been a secret execution that left no trace in any surviving record? Each scenario carried weight. Each hinted at extraordinary courage and extraordinary danger. The photograph, the witnesses, the missing records, and the silent scars all pointed to one truth. Frederica's story was far from finished. And somewhere, hidden in plain sight or lost in memory, the next chapter of her life waited to be discovered. A legacy, written in shadows. After being carefully digitized and restored, it was framed and placed on display in a resistance museum in Görlitz, Silesia. The image became the centerpiece of a new exhibition titled Women in Secret War. Visitors stared at the calm, defiant eyes of the woman lying face down while surrounded by men in uniform, feeling the tension, courage, and danger captured in that single moment. Surrounding the photograph were stories of women who had fought in silence, risking everything to resist tyranny. Among them were Dora Scholl, who passed intelligence to the French resistance, Vera Atkins, a special operations executive agent, and Elżbieta Zawaka, known as Agent Zoe, the only Polish woman who parachuted back into occupied Poland. The museum doctored historians, students, and descendants of survivors. Many felt haunted by the photograph. The woman's expression was so calm, so determined, that it seemed to hold secrets from the past, daring viewers to imagine what had happened afterward. People whispered in awe, asking whether she had survived or vanished, and what her story could teach them about courage, loyalty, and sacrifice. Meanwhile, oral historians began to collect fragments of her story from the local population. Second-hand accounts, rumors, and local folklore were carefully documented. Some said a woman matching Frederica's description had been seen in Prague years after the war. Others whispered that she had lived in a displaced persons camp for a time before vanishing again. Every fragment reinforced the idea that she had survived, at least for a while, but concrete proof remained elusive. The trail of evidence was faint, scattered, and sometimes contradictory, leaving shadows where clarity should have been. The exhibition grew beyond a display of photographs and documents. It became a call to action. Visitors were encouraged to search, remember, and help piece together lost histories. The photograph reminded everyone that even one image could reopen the story of a vanished hero, sparking new investigations, new discoveries, and new hope. What do you think happened to Friederike Haas after the war? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below.